The rain hammered against the metal roof of Marcus Kane's repair shop, each drop creating a rhythm that had become the soundtrack to his lonely evenings. He wiped grease from his hands with an old rag, surveying the half-assembled engine parts scattered across his workbench. The clock on the wall showed nearly midnight, but sleep felt impossible with the storm raging outside. A soft crash from the storage room made him freeze. Marcus grabbed a wrench and moved toward the sound. His boots silent on the concrete floor, the door stood slightly ajar, and through the gap he could see movement in the shadows. "Who's there?" he called out, pushing the door open wider. Two figures huddled behind stacks of spare parts. A woman with pale blue skin and silver markings along her arms held a small child close to her chest. Both were soaked to the bone, their clothes torn and dirty. The woman's eyes met his, filled with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. "Please," she whispered, her voice carrying a melodic accent he'd never heard before. "We need help." Marcus lowered the wrench, his heart racing, recognized them immediately as Kalari, one of the alien species that had arrived on Earth 5. Years ago, seeking refuge, most lived in designated zones, but these two were clearly running from something. "I'm Zara," the woman said, pulling the child closer. "This is my daughter, Naya. We have nowhere else to go." The little girl peeked out from behind her mother's protective embrace. Her large, dark eyes held an intelligence that seemed far older than her young face suggested. Delicate fins along her ears twitched nervously as she studied Marcus. "The authorities," Zara continued, her voice breaking slightly. "They took my husband 3 months ago. Said he was needed for scientific research. We haven't seen him since." Marcus felt his chest tighten. He'd heard whispers about government experiments on alien refugees, but most people dismissed them as conspiracy theories. Looking at the fear in Zara's eyes, he realized the stories might be true. "They came for us tonight," she went on. "Naya has ... abilities they want to study. We barely escaped." Thunder crashed overhead and both aliens flinched. Marcus made a decision that would change his life forever. He set down the wrench and stepped aside, gesturing them deeper into the shop. "Come with me," he said softly. "There's a back room with a heater. You'll be safe here tonight." Zara's relief was visible as her shoulders sagged. "Thank you," she breathed. "I don't know how to repay your kindness." As Marcus led them to the small office behind his workshop, he couldn't help but notice how Zara moved with fluid grace despite her exhaustion. Her silver markings seemed to shimmer in the dim light, creating patterns that were both beautiful and alien. When she accidentally brushed against his arm while passing through the doorway, he felt an unexpected warmth spread through his chest. "There's a couch you can rest on," he said, turning on a small space heater. "I'll find some dry clothes." While rummaging through his closet, Marcus heard Zara speaking softly to Naya in their native language. The musical tones were soothing, and he found himself pausing to listen. When he returned with towels and clean shirts, he discovered Naya had fallen asleep curled up on the couch. "She's exhausted," Zara said, gently stroking her daughter's hair. "We've been running for days." Handed her a towel, their fingers touching briefly. The contact sent an electric sensation through his hand that he tried to ignore. "You're safe now," he assured her. "But tomorrow, we'll need to figure out a more permanent solution." Zara looked up at him, and for the first time since they'd met, he saw something other than fear in her expression. Gratitude mixed with something deeper, something that made his pulse quicken. "Why are you helping us?" she asked. "You don't even know us." Marcus sat down across from her, studying her face in the warm light of the heater. "'Cause it's the right thing to do," he said simply, "and because no one should have to live in fear." Outside, the storm continued to rage, but inside the small room, something new was beginning to grow between them. Neither Marcus nor Zara fully understood it yet, but both felt the subtle shift in the air. The way their eyes lingered on each other just a moment too long, as Zara settled beside her sleeping daughter, Marcus realized his quiet, predictable life was over. Whatever came next, he was committed to protecting these two remarkable beings, even if it meant risking everything he'd built. Into the underground, dawn brought no relief from the danger that surrounded them. Marcus woke to the sound of hover vehicles circling his neighborhood, their deep humming engines cutting through the morning air like mechanical predators. Through his workshop's small window, he watched government search drones sweep between buildings, their red scanning lights probing every shadow. Zara was already awake, holding a still-sleeping Naya while monitoring the activity outside. Her silver markings had darkened overnight, a sign of stress Marcus had learned about during his mandatory alien cultural training years ago. "They're systematic," she observed, her voice tight with worry. "It won't be long before they search this building." Marcus nodded, his mind racing through options. "There's an old transit tunnel system beneath the city. It was abandoned when they built the new hover rail network. If we can reach it, we might be able to get you somewhere safer." "Us," Zara corrected softly. "If they find evidence we were here, you'll be charged with harboring fugitives." The weight of her words settled over him, but Marcus felt no regret, looking at her face, illuminated by the pale morning light filtering through grimy windows. He knew he'd made the right choice. There was something about Zara that drew him in, a strength beneath her vulnerability that spoke to something deep in his chest. Naya stirred in her mother's arms, opening eyes that seemed to shift color like deep ocean water. "Mama?" she whispered in her musical language, then looked at Marcus with curiosity rather than fear. "Hello, little one," Marcus said gently, crouching down to her level. "We're going to take a little trip today. Would you like that?" Tilted her head, studying his face with that unnerving intelligence. Then, to his surprise, she smiled and nodded. 20 minutes later, they moved through Marcus's building toward the basement. He'd packed essential supplies in a weatherproof bag while Zara helped Naya into warmer clothes they'd found in his closet. The shirt hung like a dress on the small girl, but her eyes sparkled with what looked almost like excitement at their adventure. The basement connected to a maintenance tunnel that ran beneath the street. Marcus had discovered it years ago and used it occasionally to avoid traffic during busy seasons. It might be their lifeline. "Stay close," he whispered. As they descended into the tunnel's darkness, his flashlight cut through shadows that seemed to press against them from all sides. Zara's hand found his shoulder as they walked, ostensibly for balance on the uneven floor. But Marcus was acutely aware of her touch, the warmth of her palm through his shirt, the way she stayed just close enough that he could catch her unique scent, something like rain and starlight. "The Resistance operates safe houses throughout the city," she told him as they walked. "If we can reach the harbor district, there's someone who might help us." "Resistance?" Marcus glanced back at her. "I thought that was just underground propaganda." Laugh was soft, but bitter. "The government wants people to think that. But there are many who believe aliens deserve the same rights as humans. Some of them are even human themselves." They walked in companionable silence for nearly an hour, following tunnel branches that led steadily toward the waterfront. Naya rode on Marcus's shoulders for part of the journey, her small hands tangled in his hair as she pointed out interesting shadows and whispered observations in her native language. "She likes you," Zara said during one of their rest stops. "She hasn't trusted anyone new since her father disappeared." Marcus felt something warm expand in his chest. "She's remarkable." "They both are," he added, meeting Zara's eyes. The look that passed between them was electric, full of unspoken possibilities. Zara moved closer, close enough that he could see flecks of gold in her dark eyes, close enough that when she spoke, her breath warmed his cheek. "Marcus," she began, then stopped as if the words were too dangerous to speak. A distant rumbling saved them from the moment's intensity. Heavy footsteps and mechanical sounds echoed from somewhere behind them in the tunnel system. "Search teams," Zara breathed, her face going pale. Marcus grabbed their bags and lifted Naya in one smooth motion. "This way," he said, leading them down a side passage that angled steeply upward. They emerged through a concealed grate, into an alley behind a row of seafood processing plants. The air was thick with salt and fish, but it smelled like freedom after the close confines of the tunnels. There Zara pointed to a modest building across the street. "The blue door with the spiral symbol? That's our destination." As they approached the safe house, Marcus realized there would be no going back to his old life. But looking at Zara's grateful smile and Naya's trusting eyes, he he found he didn't want to go back anyway. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The safe house was more comfortable than Marcus had expected, run by a former government scientist named Dr. Elena Vasquez. It occupied the upper floors of what appeared to be an abandoned bookstore. Elena, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and graying hair, had welcomed them with warm soup and clean clothes. "You can stay as long as needed," she assured them, showing them to a small but cozy room with 2 beds and a window overlooking the harbor. "The government thinks this building is empty, and we have ways to keep it that way." For the first time in days, Zara's shoulders relaxed. She watched Naya explore their new temporary home, the little girl's curiosity overcoming her earlier fears. When Naya discovered a box of human children's books, her delighted laughter filled the room with music. "She's never seen picture books before," Zara explained to Marcus, who was sitting beside her on one of the beds. "On our homeworld, we share stories through neural connection. This physical format fascinates her." Marcus watched as Naya carefully turned pages, tracing the illustrations with gentle fingers. "What was your world like?" he asked softly. Zara's expression grew wistful, beautiful. Vast oceans under twin suns, cities that floated on the waves. "But the war destroyed most of it. That's why we came here, seeking sanctuary." Their conversation was interrupted when Naya approached with a book about ocean creatures. She climbed onto the bed between them, chattering excitedly in her native language while pointing at pictures of dolphins and whales. "She says Earth's creatures remind her of home," Zara translated, her arm brushing against Marcus's as she leaned closer to see the book. The casual contact sent warmth spreading through his chest. But this time, neither of them pulled away. Instead, Marcus found himself studying the way Zara's silver markings seemed to pulse gently with some internal rhythm. How her hair caught the afternoon light streaming through their window. "Read to her," Zara suggested, settling more comfortably against his side. "I think she'd enjoy hearing your voice." As Marcus read aloud about underwater adventures, he became aware of the domestic intimacy of the moment. Naya curled up between them, her head resting on his lap, while Zara's hand rested casually on his arm. It felt natural, right? Like they were already a family. Over the following days, their bond deepened. Marcus helped Elena with maintenance work around the safe house, while Zara assisted with communications to other resistant cells. In the evenings, they would gather in their room, sharing stories of their past lives. "I was an engineer on our homeworld," Zara revealed one night as they sat by the window watching stars appear over the harbor. "I helped design the atmospheric processors that kept our floating cities stable." "That's incredible," Marcus said, genuinely impressed. "Here, I just fix hovercar engines and cargo loaders." Zara turned to face him, her expression serious. "Don't diminish what you do. You keep essential systems running. You help people live their lives. That's noble work." The sincerity in her voice made his heart skip. Without thinking, he reached out to tuck a strand of silver hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered against her cheek, and she leaned into the touch with a soft sigh. "Zara," he whispered, and she moved closer. Their first kiss was gentle, tentative, like a question being asked. When she responded by deepening it, Marcus felt something inside him complete itself. As if he'd been missing a piece of himself without knowing it. They broke apart when Naya stirred in her sleep on the other bed, both breathing heavily. "Is this wise?" Zara asked softly, though her hand remained on his chest. "Probably not," Marcus admitted, "but I don't care. I've never felt anything like this before." Zara's smile was radiant. Or have I in my culture, we call it soul singing. When two hearts find their perfect harmony. "Soul singing," Marcus repeated, testing the words. "I like that." Their relationship continued to blossom over the next several days. They would steal quiet moments together while Naya played with other refugee children in the safe house, sharing increasingly intimate conversations and gentle touches that spoke of deeper feelings developing between them. One evening, while helping Naya practice her English reading, Marcus noticed her looking at them with knowing eyes. "Mama happy now?" she said in careful English, her first complete sentence in his language. "Yes, little star," Zara replied, using what Marcus had learned was an endearment. "Mom is very happy." Naya beamed and returned to her book, but not before, adding, "Marcus, good daddy." The simple words hit Marcus like a physical blow, filling him with fierce protectiveness and overwhelming love for both of them. He looked at Zara to find tears in her eyes. "If you want us," she whispered that night as they held each other in the narrow bed, "we want you to. Both of us." Marcus kissed her forehead, breathing in her unique scent. "I've never wanted anything more in my life." Outside, the harbor lights twinkled like earthbound stars, and for the first time since their escape began, the future seemed full of hope rather than fear. The hunt intensifies their peaceful sanctuary, shattered one gray morning when Elena burst into their room, her face pale with urgency. "They found us," she gasped, still clutching the communication device that had delivered the devastating news. Government forces surrounded the building 3 blocks east. They're moving systematically through the resistance network. Marcus was on his feet instantly, gathering their few possessions, while Zara lifted a sleepy Naye from her bed. The little girl seemed to sense the danger, her fins fluttering nervously as her eyes darted between the adults. "How long do we have?" Zara asked, her voice steady, despite the fear Marcus could see in her eyes. "Maybe 20 minutes, Elena replied. "There's an emergency evacuation route through the old storm drains. It leads to the industrial district where another safe house operates." As they prepared to flee once again, Marcus felt a familiar anger building in his chest. These 2 innocent beings were being hunted like criminals simply for existing, for having abilities that frightened small-minded bureaucrats. The injustice of it made his hands shake as he packed their supplies. "Wait," Zara said suddenly, grabbing Elena's arm. "What about the data files? Evidence of the experimentation program?" Elena's eyes widened. "It's all here, on encrypted drives, hidden in the basement. If the government finds it, then countless other families will suffer," Zara finished grimly. "We can't let that happen." Marcus understood immediately. "You want to take the evidence?" "With us? More than that?" Zara said, her voice taking on the determined tone he'd learned to recognize. "We need to get it to someone who can expose what's happening. Journalist, a politician who still has integrity, someone with the power to stop this." Elena nodded slowly. "There is someone. A news reporter named James Carter who's been investigating alien rights violations. If we could reach him, then that's what we do," Marcus said firmly. "But first, we get out of here alive." The evacuation was a nightmare of adrenaline and terror. They crawled through drainage pipes barely wide enough for an adult, Marcus carrying Nea while Zara clutched the precious data drives. Behind them, they could hear search teams entering the building they'd just vacated. When they finally emerged in an abandoned factory in the industrial district, all 4 of them were covered in grime and shaking from exhaustion. Alive, and they had the evidence that could change everything. The new safe house was smaller and less comfortable, just a single room above a defunct textile factory. But it had something their previous refuge lacked, a direct communication link to the outside world. That evening, as Elena worked to establish contact with the reporter, Marcus and Zara found themselves alone on the factory's roof, looking out over the city lights. The weight of their situation pressed down on them like a physical thing. "I'm scared," Zara admitted quietly, leaning against the rooftop safety barrier. "It's not for myself, but for Naya if they catch us. ... Marcus moved behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and pulling her back against his chest. "They won't catch us," he said fiercely. "I won't let them." She turned in his arms, her face tilted up toward his. In the moonlight, her silver markings seemed to glow with their own inner light. "Promise me something," she whispered. "Anything. If something happens to me, if they separate us, take care of Naya. Love her like she was your own." Cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs tracing the elegant lines of her cheekbones. "Nothing is going to happen to you. We're going to get through this together, all 3 of us." The kiss that followed was desperate and passionate, filled with all the fear and love and hope they couldn't put into words. When they broke apart, both were breathing heavily. "I love you," Zara whispered against his lips. "I need you to know that, whatever happens, I love you too," Marcus replied, the words feeling both natural and monumental. "Both of you. You're my family now." They made love that night with tender urgency, their bodies speaking the language their hearts had been learning since they first met. Afterward, as they lay entwined in the narrow bed, Marcus traced lazy patterns on Zara's skin, while she told him stories of her homeworld in her musical language. "Teach me," he requested softly. "Teach me your words so I can tell Naya stories in both languages." Zara's smile was radiant. "In my language, the word for forever is threnel, and the phrase for I will always protect you is vorthrenel. Kenatai." Marcus repeated the phrase carefully, trying to match her intonation. "Vorthrenel Kenatai," she whispered, kissing his chest. "Now you know how to promise Naya that you'll always keep her safe?" As dawn approached, they both knew their peaceful moments were numbered. Soon they would have to face the government forces hunting them, risk everything to expose the truth. But for now, wrapped in each other's arms, they had found something worth fighting for. The sound of approaching vehicles in the distance reminded them that their enemies never slept, never stopped searching. Their time was running out, but their love had given them strength for whatever battles lay ahead. Love conquers. All the final confrontation came sooner than expected. As Marcus, Zara, and Naya prepared to meet the journalist who could expose the government's crimes, Elena's communication device crackled with an urgent warning. "They've tracked the signal," Elena said, her face grim. "Government forces are converging on our location. We have maybe 5 minutes before they breach the building." Marcus felt his world narrow to the two most important people in his life. Naya clung to her mother's hand, her young face serious but not panicked. She trusted them to protect her, and that trust was both humbling and empowering. "The roof," Marcus said quickly. "There's a maintenance bridge that connects to the next building. If we can reach it before they surround us completely," Zara nodded, gathering the data drives that contained evidence of the horrific experiments. "Elena, get word to Carter. Tell him where to find us if we don't make it." They climbed the narrow staircase to the roof as the sound of boots echoed through the building below. Behind them, Lena's voice could be heard making one last transmission before the communication equipment went silent. The maintenance bridge stretched across a 4-story gap. Between buildings, nothing more than a narrow metal walkway with minimal safety railings. Wind whipped across the exposed surface, making the structure sway ominously. "I'll go first," Marcus said, but Zara shook her head. "Together," she insisted. "We cross together." They were halfway across when spotlights blazed from the building behind them, illuminating their desperate escape. Government agents poured onto the roof they'd just vacated, weapons drawn. "Stop," a voice boomed through a megaphone. "Surrender the aliens and the stolen data." Marcus looked back to see Agent Collins, the man who'd been leading the hunt for Zara and Naya. His cold eyes reflected no mercy. It's only the determination to complete his mission at any cost. "Keep moving," Marcus urged, but their progress was agonizingly slow with Naya between them. The first energy blast sizzled past them, striking the bridge's support structure with a shower of sparks. The metal groaned ominously, and the walkway began to tilt. "The bridge won't hold much longer," Zara gasped, clutching Naya tighter. Another blast hit closer, and the bridge shuddered violently. They were still 20 feet from the other building when the support cables began to snap with sounds like gunshots. In that moment, Marcus made a decision that would define the rest of his life. He stopped running and turned to face their pursuers, placing himself between the agents and the two beings he loved more than his own existence. "Take them and go," he told Zara urgently. "I'll buy you time." "No," Zara protested, tears streaming down her face. "We stay together, we promised," but there was no time to argue. The bridge gave another violent lurch, and Marcus could see it would collapse within seconds. In one fluid motion, he lifted Naya and literally threw her toward the safety of the other building's roof. Where waiting resistance members caught her safely, the bridge collapsed just as Zara leaped for safety. Marcus grabbed her hand as she fell, his other arm wrapped around a twisted piece of railing. For a terrifying moment, they hung suspended over the 4-story drop while government agents closed in from above. "Let me go," Zara whispered, looking up at his straining face. "Save yourself." "Ever," Marcus growled. using every ounce of strength to pull her up. Vorthrenelkenatai, remember? With a final surge of adrenaline-fueled power, he hauled Zara to safety, just as more energy blasts exploded around them. They rolled away from the building's edge and into the arms of the resistance fighters who'd been waiting to help them escape. 6 months later, Marcus stood in a small chapel in the free colony of New Haven, watching Zara walk toward him in a dress that shimmered like moonlight on water. Naya scattered flower petals ahead of her mother, her face radiant with joy. The government's experimentation program had been exposed when James Carter published Elena's evidence. Agent Collins and dozens of other officials faced trial for crimes against sentient beings. More importantly, laws had been passed, granting full rights to alien refugees. Do you, Marcus Kane, take Zara to be your wife, to love and protect her, and her daughter for all the days of your life? Asked the officiant. Marcus looked into Zara's eyes. Seeing the same love and determination that had sustained them through their darkest hours, Vorthrenelkenatai, he said in her language, then switched to English. Forever and always. And do you, Zara, take Marcus to be your husband, to share your heart and your future with him? In every language, in every lifetime, Zara replied, her voice thick with emotion. Yes. As they kissed to seal their union, Naya cheered and delighted. Kolari and Marcus realized that their love had indeed conquered all. They had found each other across the vast spaces between worlds, survived persecution and separation, and emerged stronger for their trials. Their new life together was just beginning, but Marcus knew with absolute certainty that whatever challenges they might face, they would meet them as a family. Love had brought them together. Love would carry them forward into whatever tomorrow might bring. In the crowd of wedding guests, human and alien faces alike smiled with genuine happiness, proving that hope and acceptance could triumph over fear and hatred. Was a new beginning, not just for Marcus, Zara, and Naya, but for the entire world they'd helped to change.